All right, I would like to call this meeting to order. This is the Tyrone Township Planning Commission regular meeting for July 13th, 2021 at 7:01 p.m. Please stand and join me at the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One point of order, at 7:30, we're going to suspend business. That's the time for our public hearing for the text amendment in the zoning ordinance. So again, at 7:30, we will stop what we're doing and have a public hearing. Next on the agenda is a call to the public for any items not shown on the agenda. Is there anybody here to address the Planning Commission about non-agenda items that relate to the Planning Commission? Going once. All right. Up next, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no approval of the minutes. All right, up next, old business. Lake Urban Crossing Preliminary Plan Unit Development Review. So we have a new review from Carlisle Wortman updated from our last meeting. Nope. Pardon me. There it is. All right. Zach, if you wouldn't mind taking us through your review of the parallel plan?
All right. First, I'm curious how many folks are here for this? All right, and how many we've been here before? Okay. So we have some new folks, so I will go in a little bit more detail just so they're up to speed.
If you want me to pull up any other plans or anything, I'd be happy to do so.
You do what you feel is right. I'll dive into it. So the project is a planned unit development, which is a tool used in planning where there's an understanding that it doesn't necessarily meet all of the zoning developmental standards, but those can be modified because there's a recognizable substantial benefit from the type of project. Tyrone Township has that hardwired into the zoning ordinance, and some of the benefits that you guys require is preserved open space and other amenities like walkways or additional landscaping. So as part of a planned unit development, the applicant needs to prepare what's called a parallel plan. The parallel plan is how the property can be developed based on the comparable zoning district from a future land use map. And that's what the public hearing is for here. There's a discrepancy between what the zoning ordinance says is comparable and what the master plan says is comparable.
I do want to specify, since you mentioned public hearing, the public hearing is not over the review of the Lake Urban Crossing development. It is only to correct a zoning text discrepancy that we found coincidentally going through this process for Lake Urban Crossing. However, the public hearing is not specifically for Lake Urban Crossing.
Correct.
Sorry, go ahead.
So the parallel plan that's prepared is used as the basis to determine how many lots can be in a planned unit development, and as a basis if an applicant wishes to earn additional lots through doing certain additional design requirements. So this has been a revision. I think it's the third one we've seen. This report was prepared with the presumption that the Planning Commission and Township Board was going to take action on the zoning text amendment. So the parallel plan is a little bit different from the math is a little bit different from what we've seen. So this property is actually would be within two different zoning districts. The western portion would be in the R2 single family residential. The eastern portion would be in the presuming the zoning text amendment is adopted, the rural estate. And so all of the lots that are prepared as part of the parallel plan should be buildable. The new revisions show a house with appropriate square footage and attached garage on it, which aids in review. Let's see. I will jump into the future land use map question on page 5 of the report. The Planning Commission, at the last time this was discussed, seemed comfortable with interpreting the map as following along the boundary of the lake, as opposed to the weird squiggle it kind of does in the map, by using that natural boundary. Let's see.
What page are you on?
I am going down to page 6 right now.
Got it, okay, thank you.
So as you can see on the table, those zoning districts are what is consistent with the future land use map and presuming a text amendment. As you can see there, all of the lots in the proposed parallel plan meet the minimum lot area in both of the zoning districts. The minimum lot width, there isn't math for lot coverage or setbacks, but it appears that it's likely to meet those. And generally those are reviewed as part of individual zoning permit review. So it generally appears that the proposed lots would all be buildable in the parallel plan. For access and circulation, the streets aren't dimensioned, but they appear to be consistent with what is required in the township, so the right-of-way is big enough to put streets and sidewalks in. It's our understanding that for essential services that there are adequate taps for the parallel plan. There aren't details provided in the parallel plan for stormwater management. It's not required, but basically kind of the test is, does the planning commission feel confident that this could be done? Now, the applicants can speak to it more, but the understanding is that the wetlands will be used as part of the stormwater management system, but that water would be pre-treated with bays to get sediment out and to kind of do that first flush. And there would be adequate space within the right-of-ways to do many of those features. Landscaping isn't shown on here. Again, it's not required. Kind of the test is whether or not the planning commission feels confident that there would be space to put any required landscaping. Well, we already talked about the purpose of the parallel plan review. So the quick version is the planning commission was comfortable at the last discussion about using the different boundary for the future land use map for the two zoning districts. If the planning commission believes any of the lots aren't buildable, this would be the time to discuss it. Again, the lots don't need to have all of the minimum lot area on dry land. Your ordinance allows it to include wetlands as part of the lot area, but it does have to be buildable. If the planning commission feels it needs additional information about stormwater to determine feasibility, this would be a time to discuss it. And if the planning commission needs additional information about landscaping, again, it's not required, but kind of the test is for the eyeballs, do you think that this could be done? And just a reminder that this review was done with the presumption looking towards the zoning text amendment.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. That was good. So everybody on the planning commission understands more or less what Zach was saying in his review. And here's the parallel plan that is being reviewed. Now, on buildability or suitability of lots, of course, I'm still concerned about some of these, like 63, 62 that are very close to the lake. What are our setback requirements for lakefront? 50 feet.
It's 50 feet in all lakefront.
In all lakefront.
Yeah, R1, L1, 50 feet.
From the lake.
From the ordinary high water mark.
Yeah, high water.
Mark.
and maybe the applicant can clarify this to me, but it looks to me like 63, 62, 65 at least don't have, and a few of the others may not have enough space to meet that 50-foot requirement. Does that seem true of some of these?
Is that something that's taken into account for parallel planning?
To,
Well, it's gotta be buildable. If you don't meet the setbacks, then you can't build, right?
correct.
Not without a variance.
Not without a, so that would be sort of contingent upon a variance, a zoning board of appeals, so. So that's one thing that jumps right off the page at me. And then, stormwater, so the plan was to utilize, some pretreatment, so basically some big underground basins that would catch that first flush, that first tenth of an inch of rain, right, before it spills into the wetlands. Would it be normal to have a maintenance agreement in place before development for those? Because those are,
Yeah.
those need to be
Yeah.
emptied.
Those are generally things that you want to hardwire into the master deed and have written on the site plan itself too.
Yeah. Those are the first two things that come to my mind. But I'd like to hear from everybody on their thoughts on this.
Yeah, I guess I'll start, Dan. My concerns are similar to yours, where I think that in the parallel plan definition, it says you must meet the dimensional and other ordinance standards, and there's many lots that don't. And that's, you know, from the setback to, we're counting open water as a lot size, right? And I don't think, to be consistent, we didn't allow that previously in other applications that were submitted, but, that's just the two things that stick out. Like lot 62, for example, we're saying it's 4.25 acres, and there's no way it is, right? That lot is, that more, 2/3 of the lot is water.
At least.
Those are my big concerns.
Okay. Well, I guess another way we could approach this too is go through Zach's comments here at the end, and he does give us some advice here that we ought to discuss. Number one, so the planning commission should confirm that if it is comfortable using the natural features as a boundary. Now, that would be, so Zach, am I on the right page
Yep.
here for this one? So our master plan future land use map shows land use boundaries that are not coterminous with parcels or anything else, or much of anything else. And so basically, yeah, can you expand on that a bit?
And sometimes that's on purpose, sometimes it's because when you're doing the master plan, you're using a really broad brush. The parallel plan is based assuming that the yellow there, which would be the more denser portion, instead of following that arc there, kind of follows the northern border, yes, of Lake Urban there.
And that's this part of the site plan right
Correct.
up here. So that would also include these proposed
Correct.
parcels here, so. Okay, so that, the question is, the sort of the issue there is, do we wanna credit the applicant with, this medium density, single family for their parallel plan up to here, since this boundary, my view is this boundary is somewhat arbitrary. You can see it goes into hills of Tyrone, and, you know, you've got strange things. But as it relates to this parcel, to me, it's sensible that it would all be, considered medium-density, single-family, as opposed to the natural resources preservation. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Questions? You want
Yeah, so
greater clarification?
that boundary which was set during the development of the master plan, I mean, I don't know if who was here was involved in that, but my guess is that it was based on the availability of the sewer. The,
Most likely, when we're talking about the higher density, the R2 type equivalent, that's what I would assume. I don't know for sure, but that makes the most sense. That's consistent with the boundaries of the sewer district.
That's what we used it. The sewer's right up there.
Okay, is anybody not comfortable using that lake as the boundary as opposed to as depicted?
I think it makes sense because of where the sewer is, it's actually, kind of follows that line if you look right here. I think it makes sense to use that as the boundary.
So there's our existing 12-inch sewer.
But I think if the 50-foot setback is something that we gotta consider, I mean, there's quite a few of these that don't meet that.
I think that's our next question.
Quite a few.
That's our next statement on here. And I think we'll need to hear from the applicant on this question. You guys wanna come up here? See, and talk about these, some of these lot dimensions?
I guess back to the other thing.
Oh, good.
Are we good on the,
If we don't have any opposition to that first statement,
with phase one being, considered the
R2.
R2?
I'm comfortable with it if the original intent was to follow the availability of the sewers, which is what Ross said, and we see where the sewers are.
That was, I mean, that's just my
Here.
guess, but I didn't.
But no,
I think it was.
he kind of
It
backed
can't
it
just
up.
be a coincidence. I mean, it
But I think it
didn't
makes
line
sense.
up
I
directly.
mean, but we got, in my
If you look at
opinion,
the full future land use map, the higher density areas are consistent with the sewer district boundaries for the most part.
yeah.
Right, they would have, they sort of made assumptions on how far out that sewer would reach, I think.
When you look at the article for the R2 district, it does say that it will have sewer connections. I know that's one of the primary intents, is that to allow for such a high density, it will have access to sewer, period.
And we do have sewer running along this northern part, this northern boundary, right along there. So,
Yeah, I'm good with that. That only makes sense in regards to the natural features of the land.
And really, it's pretty close. I mean, here's my sketch, what I thought it was. I mean, it was,
okay.
you know, kind of goes just a little bit to the left of that property, maybe almost straight up, and then over. It's pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're not making any outrageous assumptions, I don't think. With that. All right,
Maybe something to note when we put together the next master plan on some of the intentions of these borders.
I think we should probably clarify that a little more. That's something I think we'll be able to remember. All right, the next comment from Carlisle Wortman would be, the planning commission should determine if any of the proposed lots in the parallel plan do not appear to be feasible. So, do you guys have any comments about some of the, 62 and 63 jump out, 65 and maybe 57 and 58 to a lesser extent? Any thoughts on that? Or you guys want to elaborate on the thinking with those lots? I'm asking you guys.
Are you guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, I could push the road over and we could get those lots to be better, 62 and 63. So I mean, I could pull that road to the south and the east and get those two to look better. Same thing with the cul-de-sac back there, I could pull that road to the south and west and probably get it to fit better in there.
What are the setbacks shown on the eastern portion as far as front yard? Is that,
Front yard setback is 100 feet.
okay, so these are all proposed to be private roads?
The one on the east side is more of a private road, yes. I mean, they're all gonna be private roads, but yeah.
On private roads, there is a footnote to the schedule of regulations that allows for a reduction to 50 feet. So that would also increase the buildable area on those particular lots.
For 50-foot road right away?
If it is a private road.
Yes.
The front yard setback needs to be enforced on all public roads, public right-of-ways, but on private roads, we do have, and shared driveways, we have a footnote in the schedule of regulations that says it can be 50.
Okay, so I got them at 100 right now, and that's because that is a 50-foot right-of-way road that's over on the east side that I draw. The one on the west side is more of a 66-foot road right-of-way.
Okay.
So I mean, I got them at 100,
That-
so if
that'll
I
help.
got that,
That helps you an awful lot.
right, if I could go to 50, then all these lots would definitely work.
Move them all back.
That-
Right.
Even if they're right on the edge of the water, that's take the 50 out the front, put it in the back.
Realistically, yes.
Well, plus
That's only,
there's the house.
But that's only, is that only in RE?
It's in all residential zoning districts.
Okay.
Including RE.
It's one of those footnotes, if you look at the table to the schedule of
Yeah,
regulations.
it's right on the, it's right on the column heading, the item, or DB. Well, but the front yard setback's already at 50 on the other ones,
On the other
on
ones,
phase
yes,
one.
on the western.
so it's not gonna help anything on phase one.
No,
No,
it wouldn't.
It's only gonna help probably 62 and 63, maybe 69.
basically all the ones that were on the east side
Or
of the property.
65 too. Yeah.
Well, that helps, with your site plan, certainly. So I guess, yeah, I would suggest playing around with that to get that 50 feet on each side of the house, for sure. Make sure these are all buildable.
Okay, it's footnote BB, just for reference, in the schedule of regulations.
Well, that makes me wonder.
It is FR and RE districts.
23, 24, 25 are up there.
Yeah,
Well,
26 and 27.
the hatched area
40.
is wetland, right?
Yeah, that's just wetlands, not,
And then this solid line
This is
is
the water's edge where we picked it up.
yeah.
is the water's edge.
So it doesn't, so the setback of 50 foot is not off the wetlands, is that why the west side, the R1 is not an issue?
Only on the water side, only in those 20,
It's
20,
really just the
Oh, yeah, these guys,
basically 20.
23 or 24.
Yeah, like I said, I was looking at the wetland boundary too, but no, it's,
Yeah. So if that's wetland, then we can, if it's open water, it's another story.
Yeah, the open water is that's the 50-foot requirement.
Yep, and applying rear yard requirements in the district, rear yard shall be lakeside of the lot and shall be measured from the normal high water line of the lake.
And that's a magical term of art. It's not the highest point that the water is in spring when all the snow melts and it rains. It's the, when you can go out there and the soil changes from grass to muck.
To bottom lines.
Okay, yeah, bottom line.
And I think it was Commissioner Ward had a question about the lot area. The definition that you guys have for net lot area is the total horizontal area within the lot lines of a lot, exclusive of all private and public road easements or rights of way. So that's
Say that again?
the total horizontal area within the lot lines of of a lot exclusive of all private and public road easements or rights-of-way. So really, the only thing that your definition excludes from lot area is road
Public
rights-of-way,
Not even water.
which would be a good thing to put on your zoning ordinance amendment list.
Our amendment wish list. Good point. All right, so I think, we're all kind of in agreement up here that we'll need to make sure we can, before we can issue any preliminary approval, we would need to make sure that those lots that are close are buildable, before a public hearing is held.
So I'd say the information that the planning commission wants is for those close lots to have that distance to the open water, to the ordinary high water mark dimensioned, and the setbacks from the road dimensioned as well, for those close lots. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Can it be as a condition, or you gonna, to get preliminary site plan approval?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't issue preliminary site plan approval until we have a
We'll
public
need to have a
hearing.
public hearing.
Yeah, so
But
until we have a scheduled public,
Okay.
proper public hearing. But I would come to that public hearing meeting with that
Sure.
question addressed, which I think you can do. But it's sort of up to the dimensions of the site plan and everything.
So that would be enough time by the time we go to public hearing, that we're not taking care of that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got about 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so, before we break, for the public hearing, so the next, that item, the planning commission should determine if any of the lots in the parallel plan do not appear to be feasible. So, at this point, we have a few that don't, but we might have a remedy. You'll have to see. All right, I'm gonna suspend regular business. We'll jump into our public hearing.
We need to move into, I move that we,
No, thank you. Yeah, you
go,
want,
go into our public meeting.
okay, we have a motion. Support. Steve for the support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this public hearing has begun at 7:30 PM. First, I'll read the public hearing notice, and then I'm gonna ask Ross to describe in as much detail as possible the nature of this ordinance revision, and then, we will, receive public comments and planning commission comments, close it, and then hopefully vote on it. All right, notice is hereby given, the Tyrone Township Planning Commission will hold a public hearing Tuesday, July 13th, 2021, beginning at 7:30 PM at the Tyrone Township Hall, 8420 Runyon Lake Road, Fenton, Michigan, 48430. The purpose for the public hearing is to receive public comments regarding proposed amendments to zoning ordinance number 36. The planned unit development. Article 11, section 11.02, table 11.1. To revise the table used to correspond master plan future land use map designations with current zoning district, to resolve discrepancies between table 11.1 in the zoning ordinance and table 20 in the master plan. Additional information is available at the Tyrone Township Planning and Zoning Department, 8420 Runyon Lake Road, Monday through Thursday, 9 AM to 5 PM. Individuals with disabilities requiring auxiliary aids or services should contact the Tyrone Township Clerk at 810-629-8631 at least 7 days prior to the meeting. Okay, Ross, would you,
So if you wouldn't mind bringing up just that,
Oh, sure.
that document.
okay,
So basically, this table that's on the screen right now is table 11.1 from Article 11 PUDs. That was brought up during the last regular meeting. Basically, A discrepancy was noted between that table, table 11.1, and table 20 in the master plan. The intent of that table is to identify master plan designations and then indicate which current zoning districts we have that correspond to them. For the purposes of PUD, as Zach touched on earlier, it's important that we do have accurate designations and corresponding districts to determine what can be used in determining the maximum density for a PUD with the parallel plan. That's pretty much it. What's highlighted on that document up top are areas that were noted that conflict with the table 20 in the master plan. Not all of them are significant conflicts. The most notable one, the one that is applicable for the current application, is the second one down, or I'm sorry,
First one down.
the first one, where we do have in table 11.1 FR, and then in table 20, it does specify that that is the equivalent of RE, and also extracted industrial.
So, our zoning ordinance is, as shown on the screen behind me, or the first page of this, Rich. So this first line, the master plan designation of residential / natural resources preservation is listed in our zoning ordinance as FR, farming residential. However, in the master plan, so this was the intent of the master plan, was to designate residential and natural resources preservation as rural estate or extractive industry. So the amendment will basically amend this one box within the table 11.1. Instead of FR, it will say RE, comma, E is extractive industry.
Extractive industrial.
Yeah.
Ross, what was the intent of the yellow highlights?
Just to note the areas that don't exactly line up with table 20.
Oh,
which
okay,
is
so
on
we,
that
are
third
we,
page.
okay.
So some of them, for example, I mean, if you look at the medium density single-family detached residential, on table 11.1, that indicates the corresponding zoning districts are R1 and R2. When we look at the...
Just R2.
Yep. So it's a question of whether or not the planning commission at this time wants to go through and make sure that all categories are consistent, or if they want to focus on just those that are clearly inconsistent.
Oh, I think
I
we
think
ought
we just
to,
about to go right now.
yeah, we ought to get through it. Okay, so we'll,
Can I go mark it up?
yeah, mark it up, we'll go down the list here, John, will you,
I would do it, but you got the computer version, right?
yeah, I can do it right here, so,
Okay, so FR, that top one's gonna be RE. We should just match 20 then, right? Table 20?
that's the intent here, so, RE,
And E/EI. Now, does it have these designations the same?
is that EI in our zoning ordinance, in our land use map?
We do have that as a current zoning district. I do not believe that it's a designation on the future land use map.
But do you really wanna make, low density in R1 to make it consistent?
Low density, single family,
R1 has 1 acre minimum lot sizes, which
Yeah,
not
that's-
necessarily for Tyrone Township, but for a lot of places that is a fairly lower density. It's not low density, but I mean, I would
Because I
consider
wasn't
it
really,
more medium.
I didn't really do any looking into that at all. I just was concerned about the first item. I mean, I'd be happy to go through it now, but
You're saying that the low density, right now that we have RE?
yes, I'm gonna change it to R1.
Well, that's just what we're saying is in the
Right.
master plan.
so in the spirit of this, public hearing.
Yeah, are we trying to just get them to match, or are we gonna revisit what we have in the master plan?
I think the master planning is the time to address your concern.
Okay,
And-
so I thought the intent was just to deal with the one item today, but.
Well,
Well, I would,
that's how it sprung up, and then Ross noticed some other discrepancies too.
It's an amendment to the table, so while we're looking at it, it's probably in our best interest to look at the whole thing. If there's anything else that you determine should be changed.
I mean, I think the original item is much more clear
Oh, that, yeah,
Clearly inconsistent.
that seems to
Yeah,
be.
this, the one that you
most
bring up
obvious.
is not quite as, I guess that could be debatable, right?
That's, yeah, that's what I was going with it.
Well, I'm of the mind that we should change them all to match the master plan.
Let's do it.
That's, you know, that's one person's opinion, but
I would agree with that.
I'm happy to hear any disagreements, but
I think it confuses people if we just correct the
If
one
we
and
just
leave
correct
the
the
others
one.
Yeah.
not correct.
And it's,
yeah, I think it's appropriate to do so.
That's,
Um,
so low density becomes R1.
So low density becomes R1. Medium density becomes R2 only, so we cross out R1 on that one.
Would low density be R1 and R8?
According to the table 20,
It wouldn't, I
It-
know, yeah, just,
and so maybe it would if we revisit this particular
no.
future land use clarification table, comparison table in the master planning process.
Well, yeah, but, no, we're good.
With the planning documents we have now, it's, I think, yeah. So the next one would be planned commercial services, which the ordinance shows PCS B1 and B2. So that would be PCS B1, B2, and ES. Is that the discrepancy you're finding, Ross?
Yep, on the master plan, on the table 20, it does also include the B2 and ES, whereas table 11.1 does not.
Does not. Then last but not least, quasi-public, all districts except EI. How do we notate that in here?
I think that one may be fairly consistent, it just didn't line up directly, so it's really,
Well, right now
That's
it
a
says,
footnote?
OS, office service.
yeah. And then we have footnote C, which basically says parks, public utility rights of way, churches and similar public, quasi-public uses.
I think that covers it, actually.
Yeah.
You follow that one, John?
yeah. OS is,
OS
Service district?
is office service, but then in footnote C, so we're talking future land use, public, quasi-public. Footnote C here also says parks, public utilities, churches, and similar public, quasi-public uses, so that covers things other than what's in the OS district. And I think it's keeping in spirit with
all districts except EI? So, R1, R2, everything?
well,
Yeah, because this looks like it's got the opposite of the way the rest of the.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
wrong the wrong way. The
Yeah.
master plan is wrong in this case. Public and quasi-public should, equate to,
So this is for a PUD, so as part of a PUD, they could potentially have a park, some open space, something like that in a different district. So that's why I believe, table 20 indicates that it should be all districts except for EI. Obviously EI, that's kind of a no-brainer.
yeah.
You don't necessarily want to have public, quasi-public right next to an active mining operation.
yeah, but so what that's saying is this, public property, that, like the property we're on right now is designated in the master plan is, future land use, public, quasi-public.
Mhm.
So we're saying that could be, office service? Or R1?
If it were to be a PUD. So table 11.1 is specific to PUD developments, where the township does have some discretion on what can be approved, what cannot be approved. And they can also, applicants can offer concessions, basically, which could be open space, parks, public, quasi-public spaces.
That makes sense. sort of. The only other thing we could do is just write in this table exactly what it says in the master plan. But I don't think that's practical. I think the footnote covers what the intent of the master plan was. That parks, utility rights of way, churches, and similar public, quasi-public uses.
Do you want to put the part in about accept the extractive industries? I mean,
Yeah, we
I
could.
mean, it's kind of what we're doing,
Looking at
consistent. Does that matter to put it in there, or just deal with it when it comes up?
More likely than not, we do not have a lot of commercially zoned property that currently exists throughout the township that is not developed already. So when it comes to this table 11.1, which is specific to PUD uses, specifically for a parallel plan or something like that, I doubt that it would be something that would come up, but you never really know. I mean, do you have any
Well,
thoughts on that?
and where it would come up, remember, is that this table is used to prepare the parallel plan.
right.
So in order for this to be a question, someone has to be developing something on something that the future land use map says is public, quasi-public. And so then by default, this would point you to say your parallel plan ought to assume that it's office.
Right.
It's just that the heading for the table gets confusing when it says these are the permitted areas, and we're using just the opposite for the public, quasi-public, so.
So Zach, is in your mind, is that last line appropriate as is?
I think it would be a long time before it becomes an issue when it's written.
Okay.
How about the other changes that we discussed?
I think it's good to do that housekeeping while you're at it.
But you think the way we interpreted the changes is correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So just for clarification, we're proposing all of the highlighted portions with the exception of the last one to be changed for consistency with table 20.
That's correct.
As shown on the screen.
As shown on the screen. So that means striking through these ones that are, and then adding the text in red, basically. But I think we if we get to a point where there's a motion, it includes just modifying it as, depicted to match the master plan, table 20. Okay, so I think that satisfies item number 3 on our public hearing agenda, review of the application. Now, receive public comments. Does anybody have any comments about what we've been discussing here over the last 15 minutes or so?
Scott Diedrich, White Lake Road. David, Scott Diedrich, White Lake Road. I know last meeting Ross was going to go and research the minutes to see what the intent was, because I know there was a discrepancy. And Ross said he was going to go back and research the minutes for the meetings, find out, try to match those up. I remember right.
We talked about it.
We
Yeah.
did.
Find out what the intent was.
I may have said
That was the last I heard. And, I'd like to know what some of the intent was. I remember I was at the meeting, but I can't remember everything. And, no, you guys are.
I think it was a long shot to be able to find anything that specifically addressed this
Yeah.
intent. And my feeling is that our assumption is, whether it's correct or not, it's appropriate. Whether they're, if they intended to make this not match, I don't know what they would have been thinking.
Yeah.
So our assumption is that this was a mistake. It's easy to see how it was made, and it's understandable. So basically, regardless of what any minutes might have said, unless there was some some clear intention to do this, which would be a little bit bonkers, but, I think that the change, in terms of your question, Scott, I think our changes are appropriate.
I just remember that it came up.
Yeah.
Okay, now the map was wrong too. So that doesn't have to be addressed during the public hearing? The
So
zoning
what
map.
map are you speaking of?
We were talking, I think there was a zoning map problem.
Oh, that was the one that was on the website,
Yeah,
that,
have we addressed, we got that straightened around yet?
Yeah, that was just an old version.
that was,
up
we had the
for-
wrong thing on the website.
Whoever put it on the website.
Yeah, I
didn't
just
use
want to make
the
sure we
right
got
file.
that straightened
I
out.
thought I looked at it, and I think
You
it
know,
was.
all right.
Was that fixed for us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got it up on the website and everything, good?
Any other public comments on, this zoning text amendment, or these zoning text amendments? All right, hearing nothing, I'm going to move on in our public hearing agenda, number 5, Planning Commission and Planner Comments. We've kind of been hearing them as we go along, but now is your last chance to lodge your comments into the public record. Rich?
Nothing, just on medium density, I think that is the R1 crossed out. or am I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not seeing
it is. It doesn't come through on that screen very well.
Okay.
There, does that look better?
Yeah, there it is. Oh, it's right in the.
Yeah.
No, you're good. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. All right, hearing nothing else, planner comments.
It's good to do this type of maintenance, and remember, kind of get it in your mind as you look at doing your next master plan, that it's a good time to shake up your zoning ordinance afterwards and look for these little bits.
Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Oh,
So can I say something real quick?
yeah.
Okay. I just, first of all, wanted to thank you guys for taking notice of what was said in the master plan and drawing attention to it. And we really appreciate that. And I like to compliment where compliments are due. And especially the last meeting, I felt like you guys were really open to speaking with all of us. And there was an exchange back and forth. That was great to see. And also the importance of the master plan, we can all see how important it is here when there's, especially when there's a discrepancy. So I really hope that, and because we've been told since February that you would like us to be working with you, there are a lot of us that are really interested in the ins and outs of the master plan. We'd love to see some committees, et cetera, and there's many of us that would like to join in on helping with that. So are there any thoughts at all about when we might get started?
I'm gonna stop you right there. We're in the public hearing just for the zoning text amendment. You will have another opportunity to talk to us later in the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
So, all right, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Do we have support?
Support.
John? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Now, can we vote on this tonight? Is that?
Yeah.
Is that fine?
Being brought up as a motion.
So,
You gotta revise the agenda.
We do have it as an agenda item.
okay, so we will come back to this and, as, in new business. Very good, back to what we were talking about, I think we were on to, we were in Zach's review of the Lake Urban Crossing. So, the last thing we discussed was, determining whether or not any of the proposed lots in the parallel plan do not appear feasible. The applicant has indicated that they're going to, go back and look at several of these close calls and, try and make them work with the setback requirements.
If I may, for the applicants, make sure to add the note that it's based on private streets.
Yeah.
So if there's any question about why they're 50 feet instead of 100 feet,
Okay.
that is very clear.
Can be answered. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's footnote BB, right?
Okay, the planning commission should determine if it needs additional information about potential stormwater management in the parallel plan. So, do you want to talk about that comment a bit and kind of,
Yep, so parallel plan, again, to reframe ourselves, we're kind of doing like DuckTales where we always have a cliffhanger and we make you.
well, because like, obviously, we're gonna want stormwater management addressed in the final plan. And
Yep.
that's, I mean, an Eagle's gonna need to permit everything and all that, but how does this, relate to the parallel plan?
Well, so I'm gonna kind of take us to a very stark different example to kind of get our mindset. So imagine someone was doing a commercial project and the entire thing were a parking lot. You know immediately that there's gonna be a lot of runoff from that paved area, and so that you're gonna have to show us where that water's gonna go, otherwise this isn't a reasonable stormwater plan. In this case, it is a little bit different. As mentioned, for a final site plan, it's gonna have to show all the numbers. It's gonna have to show the structures, where the sediment bays, where all the things are. Right now, it's kind of, it sounds like a bad phrase, but it's an eyeball test to determine whether or not you think it would be feasible for this site plan to manage the stormwater. And so it's kind of a balancing test where the parallel plan, you want to make sure it's feasible, but you don't necessarily want the applicant to do the full-blown engineering on it. You know, show where all the utilities are, show all these things. So it's a comfort level for this planning commission of what do you need to know with stormwater to know that it would be possible to develop this plan.
Now, are we looking at where the stormwater is going in each area here?
I would say it's primarily about volume and conveyance.
Okay.
Are we going to inundate the surrounding land and waters with
Right.
additional stormwater runoff because of this
Or
development?
where's the runoff go from the streets and that kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
The way I see it, the parallel plan probably has just a hair less impervious area than the proposed plan.
Proposed.
There's just a little bit, that extra road there, this one's about the same. But some of the areas where there's proposed stormwater treatment, detention basins and sediment basins and whatnot, now there's kind of houses there, but maybe you could, move it, like, maybe here there could be like a basin or something.
Well, the drainage is all to the southeast, right? Or is it more to the east-southeast?
What are the beavers doing on that particular day? Yeah, so basically all the water that's generated is gonna go into the wetlands and the lake, which is
Right.
then gonna.
But it's gonna flow that way.
That's my understanding.
So the high ground is phase one, and the lower area is phase two.
Yep.
But I think the drainage are almost separate, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Your drainage design would be like two separate systems for phase one and phase two. Is that correct?
Is that what you were?
Yeah, I'd be running ditches down the property lines, through some riprap before I hit the wetlands. It's basically the same theory I did when I did the site plans.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, in the site plan, like your storm
Yes.
drainage from the road network on the phase one is independent
Of phase two?
of phase two.
Yes, they are independent, yes, correct.
Yeah, none of the phase two water is gonna run into phase one. I don't think it's physically possible. And vice versa.
We basically shot it down the back, or down the sidelines to get to the back areas off the road. We'd have ditches along the side of the roads, and there, at one point, there'd be an outlet to go back along the property line to get back to the wetlands through a series of, ripraps, sediment basins, whatever we need to clean the water out before it actually hit the wetlands. But it'd be going down the sidelines to get to the back.
So you're not proposing underground stormwater conveyance?
Just maybe on road crossings, culverts possibly, but yeah,
You're not doing a storm sewer system.
No, it would be some kind of a rain garden slash something, riprap, sediment basin trap, would be some kind of thing like that.
And it'll meet Eagle standards and
Yes,
county drain commissioner standards.
yes.
Well, you mentioned open ditches, but the cross-section of the roadway is showing curb and gutter.
On that phase one, we are doing curb and gutter.
With a stormwater,
Yeah, but everything would be shut down the property lines to get to the back wetlands. So again, it would be crossings with catch basins, yes, and some pipe to kind of shoot it down the sidelines to get to the wetlands, then through the wetlands, then yes, ultimately get into the lake, crossing the road again.
but I think what Zach is saying here is, when kind of, as an eyeball test, when we're looking at this parallel plan, do we believe that there's enough room here to
Yeah.
mitigate any additional stormwater runoff? You know, my view is that yes, there is, but I've been, I think is that correct?
Yeah.
More or less, would we have enough room? You're not putting in a big paved area, they're not proposing a whole bunch of impervious area.
Yeah, generally, the stormwater that's gonna be generated is from the paved surfaces here.
Mhm.
As a practical matter, the runoff from the houses is all gonna be absorbed in the lots. So it's primarily the streets.
Mhm. Are you proposing basements and sump pumps?
Yes.
Even something like this detention basin, I mean, assuming this works in the site plan,
Mhm.
you know, like that lot has a little bit extra room, you know, where,
Right up here, let me see if I can find there.
I
Site
got
plan.
it,
What's the date you have?
I got a date of 5/27.
Okay.
Yeah, that P4,
Let me check.
it's P4, sheet P4.
I'm on P2. looking at
Okay,
the site
P4
plan.
shows detention basins
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah, okay.
outlets and everything else.
Is that the latest one on 5/27?
Yeah, 524, yeah. Or
527.
527, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on page what, John?
So just, I guess, my thought is just looking at, the relatively the same layout of the road, like I said, probably a little less impervious area in the parallel plan, looking at the proposed retention in the site plan. If those locations would work in this, maybe like a lot would need to be removed, but looking at it like between lots 27 and 28, that's a detention basin, or a
Right.
detention basin, so if that worked in the site plan, some of those lots there are extra large, you probably can fit a detention basin there, maybe, that would,
I see what you're saying, John.
but some of them, like that detention basin, if there needed to be something there, some of those lots are kind of small, maybe there's some room in the back over here, though. The minimum acreage, this minimum lot size is a half acre, so some of those lots, 14, 15, 16, and 17, right
Oh,
there.
sure.
Well, going into the parallel plan, there's not that open space, so in the site plan, they're using the open space for the stormwater management.
Yeah, but it's not being shown on the parallel plan, is what you're.
It's not being shown, but there could be room, it's not like they.
I could still put an easement across the back of those guys' property and put a
Yeah.
detention
Put a
basin
rain
in their
garden or
backyard.
something, yeah. I agree.
And that's with the assumption that the design of the stormwater system in the site plan work, we haven't even got there yet.
Right.
So,
With some preliminary math.
I think the biggest part is the impervious area, I mean, just looking at it, I would say it's a little less. Was there calculations on that? I don't know.
The west side is probably the same. It's the east side that's gonna be less.
East side is just a little bit less, because you don't have the crossing of the road.
So basically, if we develop this plan, could they fit a stormwater management, some sort of stormwater basin in it?
And still have 77 lots.
And
It's a
still
final
have-
number that we're
And
gonna.
still have 77 lots?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel comfortable
I
that,
mean, we're only looking for that final number, we're not trying to have a buildable site.
no. And I feel comfortable that we could, just,
And then over here,
Well, what do you
Yeah.
think, Zach? I mean, what's your opinion on that? Because this is like
that
your
would be
job.
hard to get to, because that's across. the
There
road.
are lots of places where you can store water on there, so, one of the things that's done commercially, especially in cities now, is even underneath parking lots, is giant,
That's-
basically
that's-
water, rain gardens underneath there. You won't even know it, it'll be underneath there. So there are lots of ways to massage it.
Yeah, and which is not like desirable for a cost standpoint, but they're not, no one's building this, so that's kind of like.
for a development standpoint.
Yeah.
But all we're doing is seeing if it's feasible, and
Yeah, you could have stormwater
seems like it is.
treatment.
Yeah, and as mentioned, it is possible to have the easements for stormwater, for swales, for rain gardens within a lot, and your definition doesn't exclude that from lot area.
Got it.
And
So,
I
yeah,
guess,
between some combination of underground storage or, storage, within easements and right of ways.
earlier when I mentioned about the storm sewer system, the closed system with the curb and gutter, I was talking about the site plan. That's how you have the site plan. And here, yeah, with the R, you wouldn't have that with, RE, with 5-acre lot.
Not with those big lots, that'd be ditches over there.
It'd be ditches. So it'd be a little, different methodology, but I would be comfortable that there would be room available.
All right, next question. The planning commission should determine if it needs additional information about potential landscaping in the parallel plan. Zach?
Yeah, so, your zoning ordinance requires some landscaping along streets, and adjacent property, so primarily along the southern border there. This is the more recent parallel plan. And again, it's kind of an eyeball test where you need to be comfortable with what's proposed. Those lots are generally big. My eyeball test says there's probably room to put
Yeah.
landscaping in there. It may be as part of an easement over it, but it's
Again,
your comfort level.
That can be included in the site area according to our definition. in our ordinance.
Yep.
So,
And so,
just curious on that, the ordinance requires, just like an RE developed lot, it requires landscaping?
not for an individual lot, but for a site condominium.
Or a PUD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so kind of to take again to the extreme, if someone were doing a commercial or office PUD, there's more rigorous landscaping that they have to put in, and so if they're not showing that on a parallel plan, it's probably not feasible. Or if the entire thing's parking lot, that's not enough space to put your trees in.
I mean, I'm comfortable that we could put, or they could put an adequate row
Yeah.
of landscaping and vegetation along White Lake Road there.
Yeah.
And that would satisfy the landscaping requirement, right?
We wouldn't necessarily need anything on our north line there adjacent to the existing subdivision, do we? It's residential.
I didn't focus on that, but looking at there's room in the right of way generally.
Yes.
To-
Okay,
to do
that's,
this.
yeah, that for sure, we got room, so. Realistically, you could put a tree at every lot corner up at the front of the road, along the whole road.
So I would recommend, prior to public hearing, making notes on your parallel plan of these things, making us feel comfortable that, that you'll meet all the requirements of the ordinance.
Do you guys want to see a landscaping plan or not?
I would not say, for a parallel plan, I don't think
Okay.
you need a landscaping plan, you need to shade an area that says landscaping area.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. I could kind of show a hatched out area or something called landscape area, that's fine.
and dimension it so that
Okay.
we're all, so it's all on the up and up. Okay, that was it for our planner comments. Do you guys have anything additional to say about your parallel plan, about our planner comments, or about anything we're asking you to do tonight?
I don't, we revised a couple of things, we're still shooting for 77 lots, I guess, if we can make everything work, I guess that's kind of the magic number.
The magic number is 77 for you guys, well, whatever it is for you. But sort of I would say the key thing is this buildable area.
Okay.
And I would be really careful to make sure we have an appropriately sized building envelope in each one of these lots.
Okay.
And if I may, I would want to see the building envelope, and especially in the close ones. So
Okay.
show the setback.
Show the setbacks on, say, on the close ones on all the sides.
On all sides, yep. And yeah.
I was gonna say, look at lot 1 on that parcel that you traded off. It looks like it's just close to that corner. That one,
On lot
it
number
could
one?
be 50. Yeah, lot number 1 right at the entrance of phase 1.
Yeah,
I mean, does that need to be 50 in the back? That's the,
it's 35
No.
foot from.
35, okay, so that means that. Oh, the other ones were doing 50 because of the water.
Because of the water.
Yes, because of the water,
That's
yes,
correct.
yes.
That's a different zoning.
And then add that, are you gonna add that, rear setback? Well, here's a 75, or I guess on all of them, say, to the no matter if it's R2 or RE, it should be 50 foot to the water, right? So add that on your,
Yeah,
Your
I made
zoning
a note, it says
criteria.
50-foot setback from edge of water,
yeah.
or open water, actually.
Yep, and then, yeah, show that building envelope on the plan.
Yep.
Is there anything else we need to talk to Lake Irving Crossing about?
I think there may be some people with questions that we can do right now.
We'll do that with the second call to the public. So we'll hear from the public. Since this wasn't a public hearing, this is just a review of basically a review of our review. Yeah. So we'll hear from the public at the appropriate time on the agenda. Well, if the planning commission has nothing else for Lake Irving Crossing, we'll move on to, back into the zoning ordinance amendment. You ready for that? All right. You guys have any other questions for us?
I don't.
Questions, comments?
Nope.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. All right, moving on into new business now. Proposed amendments to table 11.1 and article 11 of the zoning ordinance. We had our public hearing on this. We're going to, the idea here would be to make text amendments to the zoning ordinance, particularly table 11.1 in the plan unit development section, as depicted on the screen here. If there is no other questions or comments from the planning commission on this, I would entertain a motion to make the zoning amendments to table 11.1 in article 11 of the zoning ordinance.
You'll need to do that exactly as we are making the changes, so we'll have to go.
I want to use this document, so if you can send me this document directly, if this is what the motion is for.
If this is exactly what we're doing, so we
Will
don't.
that suffice?
Oh, yeah.
So we don't have to go through line by line, we can just
No, you can say as.
move to approve as amended,
As.
as amended.
As proposed.
As proposed. Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have support? Any discussion of the motion? Okay, all in favor, do we do roll call for zoning text amendments or normal?
Normal.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. All right, now we're into some other new business. The Deroser Special Land Use Site Plan Amendment. All right. Give me just one moment here while I open everything up. Okay, first things first, is our applicant here? Hi. Do you want to introduce everything you're proposing to the planning commission before we hear from our planning review?
Sure, should I do it from there,
Wherever you're comfortable, that would be fine. Yeah.
or? Okay.
Be good.
Yeah, if you would, and then
And then
turn
we
turn
have
it to,
here.
so that we can hear you too.
It's a good sign though that he didn't leave the room for a place he's comfortable.
And just tell me, I've got everything that was submitted to the planning commission available, so if there's any drawings or documents you want to see as or you want to reference, please let me know.
Okay.
And give as much background as you can.
Okay, my name is Tim Zimmer. I'm a civil engineer with Livingston Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Laura and Jerry Deroser, who are the owners of the property, who also happen to be out of town. They regret not being able to be here tonight. And I would like to just start off by thanking Ross and the staff for all of their help getting us to this point. Mr. Deroser operates an underground construction and earthwork business. Out of this, this is a staging yard, and his main office is now housed in the trailers in the home that are on the property that was part of the original special land use back in, I think it was 2017 or 2018.
Thereabouts.
And that covered what you see on the right half of get my bearings straight here, the east side of the property. And overall, he has a vision of developing this in stages into the future with a building, a more permanent new construction building somewhere on the site. And this is an intermediate stage where we take care of the stormwater and getting and building out the yard out to the remainder of his property, and then so that he can expand his operations as needed. It is a little crowded there as it stands. We have proposed, there's a high point in the site, roughly halfway east to west in that vicinity right there.
This line right there?
Yep. So that is a dividing point between drainage areas for the front and the back half, which would be serviced by the two detention ponds that you see on that, on either end. The improvements would be the drainage system for that, a perimeter ditch swale around the perimeter, and some underground to pick up some of the areas in the new pavement. The pavement, as I call it, is proposed as gravel, which is maybe something we're going to be talking about here, but it is his wish to have it remain that way. It is fairly, there's heavy equipment coming and going occasionally, and he feels that that's both from an economic standpoint and from an operation standpoint is the best surface for him to operate on. There's we're proposing a new drive approach there to kind of upgrade it, bring it up to county standards for a commercial drive approach. Again, looking forward towards the next phases of extending driveway back into the property and a new building at some point.
So this is your new taper and drive approach right
Yes.
there, got it.
We have We have site distance approval. We've gone through a first phase with the road commission on their review. They've asked us to finalize some of the site plan issues here before they'll move any further on permitting of that driveway. He does want to try and get that done this year. Other than that, the ponds are designed according to Livingston County Drain Commission standards. We expect that there'll be, and there will be a requirement for them to review this as part of their soil erosion checklist. You need to have that done. So that will be some of the next steps. So we're here tonight, I'm here tonight to talk about the plan, answer any questions I can. I'll do my best to answer any questions about operations there, although it's really not my area, but he did fill me in on some of that. So with that,
thank you. So I guess our next, the next thing we'll do, we have a few other things we can go through here. We have Zach's review, which I'm gonna ask him to step us through next. And then, you had a response letter to his review.
yes.
That we received, earlier this week, yesterday, I think. So, we can talk about that after Zach's review.
All right, and I'll try to acknowledge stuff from the letters I go through the review as well, but I may not catch them all. So the quick recap, and who in the audience is here for this one? All right, so this is our first time talking about this, so you're at the same place as everybody. So the term of art in the zoning ordinance is open storage yard. So when you see that in the report, that's what your zoning ordinance defines us as. The proposed expansion is not going to include any additional buildings. It's going to move to the western portion of the property that had been wooded. And the Planning Commission Subcommittee determined when looking at these plans earlier that it was considered a major amendment that required review and approval back through this body. Let's see. You got the property right there. The proposed expansion is in the area with the yellow box. The box on the right is where the driveway improvements are going to be. It is in the PCI Planned Commercial Industrial Zoning District. This is a special land use for that area. And it is also in the Planned Commercial Industrial Future Land Use Map. We'll jump ahead to page 4. It's surrounded immediately to the north, right along Old US 23 by another commercial property. I believe that's the propane. There. The other properties around it are the farming residential. You can roughly see where the houses are. Now, mentioned later on in landscaping is that there needs to be some barriers and buffers between this open contractor yard or open storage yard and residential. The one of the greatest concern is to the north. That's where it's the closest. You can see the one to the south and the west, the residential house is actually quite a bit away from the property line through there. On to page 5, and there's another quirk in the future land use map. I think that's probably supposed to be consistent with the lot line, but it's a little bit off. So it's just a big thing to do the future land use map. And we can't get them all perfect. For natural resources, the property is relatively flat. It does slope from the center to the edges, so that's why the stormwater is breaking both ways. There are no wetlands. The woodlands are in the back. They've been cleared. The applicants have said they're going to add soils information to this. The couple notes there for landscaping. Your zoning ordinance requires showing trees with a caliper of 18 inches or more. The trees have been removed. The Planning Commission can waive the requirement to show where those trees are. Most zoning ordinances want you to show those trees because if you're removing them, you need to do some sort of replacement. I wasn't able to find that replacement schedule in your landscaping standards, so you show them and then you cut them down and that's kind of the end of it. So I don't know if there's a whole bunch of value in requiring showing it in this case. As mentioned, the applicant is going to be adding soils map to there. For setbacks, it is in the PCI district. It meets the minimum lot area, the minimum width. The setbacks that have the no are for those existing buildings. There are no expansions for those. They're considered legally non-conforming. A couple of the spots there for the side and rear setback, the reason why those are no, that's for the cleared area. And there's language later on that says areas that can be used for staging, maneuvering, and those types of things need to meet the required setback. And there are some areas where the proposed gravel area extends into those. For access and circulation, mentioned that the driveway is going to be paved, that they're working with the road commission. The reason why we brought up what measures to keep truck traffic to the paved area is if you look at the site right now, the driveway went from 24 feet to like 40 feet wide. So the trucks are doing very lazy runs through there, which can be a challenge because cars don't necessarily know exactly where they're going to be turning, and it can be damaging. So if it's going to be curbed or some other issues like that. For off-street parking and loading. So this is one where I have looked through here. So when it was previously approved under 25.02B for off-street parking and loading, there's an ability for the planning commission to waive the paving, subject to satisfactory demonstration by the applicant that the type and volume of traffic expected will not exceed the capacity of the alternative requested, and that it protects the public health and safety. But then when you look at the specific standards for open storage yards under 2205P2, it says that all driveways, loading areas, staging areas, and truck maneuvering lanes are to be paved. And I wasn't able to find any language in that 2205 that allows for waiving that. And generally, if you have a broad standard and then a more specific standard, the specific is controlling. I said I looked and I tried to find wiggle room for it. I haven't yet. I didn't want to go too deep into that rabbit hole because you guys haven't discussed it yet or been able to hear from the applicant. But as it stands right now, it seems difficult to find a solid nail to hang the hat of granting waivers for those areas. The existing stuff that's there, employee parking, you can do waiving for those types of parking, but with those conditions. Essential services, it's our understanding that there won't be any additional utilities required for this. The applicant has said that they will add the location of those couple of propane tanks on there. We raised the question of whether or not the planning commission wants a demonstration that it could hold all the stormwater if it were paved. That's not a requirement, but we'd like to bring that up for the forward-looking issue. The applicant has noted, or the applicant's agent has noted that they are working with the Livingston County Drain Commissioner on making sure it's up to standards. For landscaping and screening, they're proposing a berm along that northern little nook where it was closest to the house with 160 American arborvitae. Which my wife would love. She always wants us to put those along our property line. We live in a really tight spot, but so that's where the proposed landscaping is going in, right along there. It's very dense. As we mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission should have the discussion of whether or not it wants to require additional landscaping along the other residential properties to the west and the south, but those are a bit far away and currently landscaped. The one thing that I do want to point out is the previous site plan did require some landscaping with the berm, some trees, and it doesn't appear that those trees are there, so those should be installed as part of this as well. For lighting, the site plan doesn't appear to show any details. If there are, they should be added, or note that there won't be any. Outdoor advertising signs, the site plan doesn't show any. The applicant in the response letter has said there won't be any. I know I've seen the topsoil available sign there. If that's permanent, it ought to be added, otherwise if it's just a seasonal temporary sign, it doesn't necessarily need to be on the site plan. Okay, to open storage yards. So these are the kind of the specific controlling standards. Some of it we've already touched on. So setbacks, for specific items, they need to meet the required yard setbacks. Those include the equipment storage areas, so where trucks are parked, where other equipment's parked, truck staging areas, and similar options need to meet the setbacks. So this does exclude kind of maneuvering lanes and other types of things. Where the challenge comes in for zoning is how do you know what those areas are going to be used for? So if it's paved and flattened, you don't necessarily know what's going on there. It needs to have access to a paved principal arterial. It will continue to have access from old US 23. Plan to pave it. Staging area. All the staging areas need to be on the site and have to be outside of required yards. There's nothing going to be in the right of way, and it wasn't specifically called out on the site plan that here are our staging areas, so that may be something valuable to make sure that they're in the setback or outside of the setbacks. Outdoor storage of material. We noted that there was a discrepancy in the hours of operation. The zoning ordinance says you can't do it before 7, you can't move stuff around. The applicants have noted that they're going to change that discrepancy. One thing that may be worthwhile adding to the site plan that I didn't get on here, and this is based on my drive around, is the storage of materials can't go above the landscaping. I was able to see some of the screen topsoil above the berm a couple of weeks when I've driven through there. I don't know if it's a regular thing or just a odd thing. I have a pretty small Volkswagen, so I'm not too high up in the air. There is some description of materials that are going to be stored on there, but if the planning commission wants a more tight description, that's something to share with the applicant. We mentioned the screening already. It's our understanding that there's not going to be any display of product. So think open storage yards, they may have products that they want to show. For site design, we mentioned that there are those existing buildings, there aren't going to be any proposed changes to those. And those buildings are screened by the existing berm. We mentioned the lighting. Outdoor storage will not be within the required yard, and we mentioned the loading parking is going to be on the site. It does meet the minimum lot area for the dimensions, and there is recommendation of performance guarantee. So remember, this too is a site plan amendment and a special land use amendment. I don't know that there's too much value going through the site plan criteria there. We kind of touched on it in different criteria. For special land uses though, the specific criteria are that it's consistent with the master plan, and the future land use map does call for this zoning district, which this is a special land use in, that it's consistent with the zoning district, and as mentioned, it is the PCI industrial district, or the planned commercial industrial district. Neighborhood compatibility, the property to the north is in the same zoning district, is generally the same type of use. The properties to the south and west are residential, but are buffers there. That it won't have an impact, a significant impact on the natural environment. And I'm not entirely sure why you require paved surfaces for these types of yards. One likely case is to prevent spills from going through, but they're not going to be having any hazardous materials on the site other than the fuel for the vehicles. Public services, and it's our understanding that there's not going to be any need for additional public services, utilities, schools, or police, or that it won't cause harm for traffic. There likely will be more truck traffic with more trucks and more business, but not likely significant for the capacity of the road. Let's see, the proposed use shall be designed, located, planned, and operated to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And so basically with that, if you determine it's met the standards, it should be consistent with that, because that's the purpose of your standards. The Submarine Comments there, that's the laundry list of all the things we've just discussed. Many of them have been addressed by the applicant. The biggest issue is likely the paving. And so again, before I went down to the wormhole of trying to find options or alternatives, I wanted to have this body's discussion first.
Thank you, Zach. Nice job, as always. All right, so. Well, is there any value in going through the response letter? Or you kind of did touch on a lot of the responses as you went back, so. Personally, I don't think we need to.
Well, for the applicant or the applicant's agent,
It's up to-
were there ones that I missed?
Is there anything you wanted to specifically address, Zach?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think Zach did a good job of summarizing what was in there. I certainly am here to further discuss any number of them, but at this point, I defer to.
So basically, the applicant is operating a contractor yard, for all intents and purposes, out of this front half of the property, and they want to expand their operations and do substantially similar things in the back half, just
That's correct.
more of it. So they're growing as a business and they want the space to do so.
Yeah.
Is that essentially what we're here for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I think this is the time for planning commissioner questions, comments.
Well, the biggest thing I see here is whether the paving is gonna be required or not. And by the sounds, we may not be able to waive that, if I understood Zach's analysis here.
That's my quick, well, I don't want to say quick, I didn't just glance at the standards. I did poke a little bit, and I did confer with Mr. Lewan, who's kind of the principal for the community. That's our initial impression. If there is, like I said, if there is interest, we can try to examine deeper to see if there are other areas where it may allow for waivers. But on the face of it right now, if you ask me, it seems possible, it is possible to do waivers for regular off-street parking, but this specific use, it says you gotta have these things paved.
So what would be the impact of that, on this site? Pave the whole thing, pave certain areas? I mean, it's off-street parking and loading is what is required for paving, so that, I think that's a narrow enough definition.
The staging here, so how did the current site plan, is that approved under the same standards? That doesn't have, that's not paved?
No, they utilize the looser interpretation.
What about the site to the north?
Suburban?
That's pretty much concrete.
Yeah.
What about this? They got like 100 tanks back there. Looks like almost the same operation.
You're saying they can't do this with the ZBA as well?
Isn't that a staging area?
It would be,
ZBA will not grant use variances, so this would not be something that they can apply for under our current ordinance. Only dimensional variances is all that our ZBA considers.
Steve, so this right here, none of that's paved. I mean, would you say that's a staging
Oh,
area?
it is.
What about Action? They got like 10 barns out there. Is that all paved between there?
No.
None of that's paved. Storage barn, right, look to the north of that. We got a
That's
camper.
paved.
What about back here where those campers are?
Yeah.
So that's 4 in a row right in this PCI district. Not one of them is paved.
yeah, so For most uses within PCI, your general off-street parking and loading can be waived. If the anticipated traffic can be handled by the material and it won't cause public harm. Where it's getting caught up is the specific standard for open storage yards. It says, all driveways, loading areas, staging areas, and truck maneuvering areas within the site shall be paved. What I would say is if it does turn out that the previous waiver was an error, that it will be very difficult for the township to go back and require it to be paved now because the applicant has made a good faith effort to act on that previous approval. So at worst, for the applicant, it would apply to the expansion area. But like I said, we can continue to search to see if there's any other BB footnotes hidden somewhere in the dark recesses of this.
What would be the benefit to everyone to have it to paved? I mean, I think maybe dust control. I don't know if that's
No,
an
I
issue.
don't think that's the case. Our office is next door to Livingston Concrete, and even where it's paved, where they go in and out, once it dries up, it's as dusty as if it was gravel.
Yeah, and my experience is,
It's really just
It would
gonna
be
increase
for-
the stormwater. There'll be more stormwater runoff.
yeah, my experience is many of these types of operations where you have kind of the large landscaping materials are not paved. You know, and more of the landscaping yards where you've got the bin with this type of stone and this type of stone and that type of mulch, I can't think of any that are paved, you know, because you don't want to put that pavement down and have to hit it with the loader all the time, because it's not good for that bucket to have to hit it. It's not good for the pavement to keep hitting it, especially if it's asphalt.
And if you bring heavy trucks in there and turn them and all that, in the summer, it's
Yep.
gonna tear that all up.
Yes, especially if it's asphalt.
And
So-
really, it's
Even concrete, look at that, how
Yeah.
tall that is.
it really is just gonna just have much more runoff.
Oh, yes, yes.
What C factor did you use for the aggregate?
0.7,
And then for pavement, you would use 0.9?
yes.
So that means that's quite.
Magnitudes above. Like I said, one of the things that I find fascinating about zoning ordinances, they're kind of an archaeological thing. I don't know why it's required to be paved here.
Well, if you look at the uses for open storage yards, or whatever the heading is, open storage yards for the display and sale of finished products, or the storage of finished manufactured products shall comply with the following minimum site development requirements. So it's really like,
We're not,
no, this is kind of different. To me, that would be like, I don't know, some, really like a,
something, it's just not this.
My recollection from the first site plan approval, which I was a part of, was that indeed we were being, the standard was not that. It was what you termed the looser standard. I don't see how it, I mean, with all due respect to Zach, I echo what John just said, that,
maybe it was
I mean,
contractors.
it doesn't seem to me that he doesn't have any finished product that the public is coming to see. So,
I think he does a
and
good job.
besides, that's all besides the fact that it's, putting down pavement under the conditions that those types of yards experience is just you're throwing away money. Because, I mean, no matter how thick of a pavement you put down, you're gonna be fixing it all the time.
Well, I think we all agree that this, I mean, speaking for myself, I agree that pavement is not necessary here. It's getting around the requirement that's the challenge, so, I think that's where what we need to talk through. Some way or another, how do we get around that requirement?
Did the requirement change since the previous, so are you reading it more tightly?
Probably.
Yeah.
I've I looked at the standards for both general off-street parking and loading, and then the specific ones for the open storage yard, which it isn't a perfect fit, but it's the closest fit for your scheduled uses.
Might need to be, this is more.
Yeah, I mean, where does precedent play in, you know? I understand we're here to follow the letter of the ordinance, but, you know, suburban propane, this is an open storage yard. No matter how you look at it, they are storing propane tanks and it's open.
Do you know what kind of special land use that is?
Not offhand, that was before.
Yeah.
I
What
was
about
here.
action? What kind of storage would that be?
That would be an accessory use to the special land use, if I'm not mistaken, in the PCI district, for that type of operation. If my recollection serves, I believe that this initial special land use was approved as a determination of similar use. So it was not exactly spot on with an open storage yard, it was more closely related to, it was related to it, but not 100%. So under the determination for similar uses, it was considered a outdoor storage and contractor's office space, or something like that. I believe previously I sent over the approval documents with the meeting minutes, which you can bring up to verify
Sure.
that.
Which one is,
That would have just been an email, that's not in the packet.
okay.
That was just for background information for everyone
that,
who was not here during the time that it was approved.
You would have sent that to,
That would have been a while back, closer to when the application was initially received.
okay. I'll see if we can find it here.
So while you're looking at that, with respect to the paving, there are a couple of different avenues available. One would be this body can say, nope, that's what the specific standard for this is, and even though it's not the exact fit, this is what we determined was the closest fit in our zoning ordinance. You gotta pave the new stuff. Another option would be if this body is comfortable with it, which it sounds like it is. Well, let me get to that one next. Another option is for us to continue to search if there is wiggle room hidden in a footnote somewhere that has been unfounded. A third would be if this body is comfortable including a waiver option similar to the regular off-street parking and loading.
It's that one right there, yeah.
Is that there could be a zoning ordinance amendment, a zoning ordinance text amendment to add that.
So then we would be doing a zoning ordinance amendment.
So I believe in there we should have some fairly detailed meeting minutes.
9 attachments, okay.
Yeah.
Phew.
There's a lot in there.
This one right here, huh?
Yep.
All right.
The recommendation letter may also shed some light on it without having to read through all of it, but no better.
Sure, we'll look at that too. That would be, this one?
Yep, the PC recommendation to the board. That should be just a general overview, a summary of everything that was recommended for approval by the planning commission at that time.
It does not, I'm not
That's not
seeing
specified.
anything about that particular requirement. Update at the access drive to show a paved surface, waive for 2 years to allow for potential relocation, so. That's the only thing I'm seeing about paving. I guess I'm not really sure we need to go through all these old documents right in this forum right now. So go through your options again, so a zoning text amendment or, look for another out,
Yeah,
or require the new stuff to be paved. Again, speaking for myself, I don't think that's a fair requirement. I don't think it's, I just don't think it's right to require that they pave this yard, personally.
well, and it's common for mismatches like that to happen when you go through the most equivalent match. Because as Commissioner Ward read, the clean definition for this type of use doesn't suppose all of the things, the heavy trucks necessarily, that is involved with something like this. So again, the couple of options, as you outlined, just leave it as it is. You have to pave the new stuff. We searched the zoning ordinance for any possible wiggle room or initiation of a zoning text amendment to allow for a waiver. I suppose a heavier lifting would be to add specific standards for contractor yards that's different from open storage yards. That's a bit heavier lifting than adding waiver language to here. But that may be something worthwhile putting on a long-term zoning ordinance list if you expect to have more contractor yards or expansions of contractor yards so that it can be a better fit.
I have a question on the setback. So the, there's 150-foot setback, should that be from the road right away?
Front yard? You're referring to the front yard setback?
Yeah, but the 151 from required adjacent to US 23?
With properties that have frontage along both Fawcett and Old 23, that 150-foot setback is required, if I recall correctly, based on that footnote.
Yeah. None of the proposed addition is gonna be within that.
Okay,
So
so there's not that
those
special
structures-
requirement?
No, those structures are existing non-conforming.
I'm not speaking of the structure, I was speaking more that, the detention pond in the front, and that setback, because the property line goes into the road?
Yeah, I believe that some of the detention basin portions of it can be included within the required yard setbacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying
More or
that
less structures or.
what I'm saying is the property goes through the road. The lot.
Right.
Yep.
So is the setback from the
It is
property
from
line?
the edge of the road right away.
So then I think your layout of the setbacks is incorrect. Can you pull this up on the
Yeah.
screen? Site plan, by the driveway.
Right there, right here?
Yeah, so see that corner of the property, your
Yeah.
setback is like offset 150 feet from the road?
Yeah.
Well, look where the road is, and then
Oh,
you're,
where's the setback line?
it's right along the pond. The setback
Oh,
line
that's
right
it.
there. It's like a zigzag line, but it should just be an offset from the roadway, right? It should look more like a
That's
curve.
a pond drainage area boundary, not a
Oh,
setback line.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Go to the previous plan, you see the,
So that's the area that's draining into this square pond right here.
go to sheet two, you'll see the
Yeah.
front
The
yard.
ponds are allowed in the setbacks, right?
Ponds are allowed in setbacks, yeah, building setback. And that's way more than 150 feet, I think, as well.
Yeah, on page 2, it's shown.
Oh, no, it's right here. It's by that.
Was it near that?
It's got a different, can you zoom in a little bit more?
Oh, here's page 2. Oh, is this?
See, you can follow it down
Ah,
here.
there it is.
Do you see that line?
Yep,
It's hard to see it.
right there.
So does that follow the property line? Is that curve? I can't tell. Maybe it's accurate. This is your
I see.
line.
No, here, John, look,
Goes straight.
it does follow the road, just like
Okay.
it's supposed to.
All
Yeah,
right,
yeah, you see it, it gets lost in all the contours, but there it is,
all right.
right there. So he's good on that.
And then another thing in the setbacks, the question that you raised, Zach, about the, we discussed this at the preliminary meeting thing about the gravel driveway going into the setbacks in the back storage area.
Mhm.
There's 30-foot side setback and 50-foot rear setback. And then the question was, there's a question on that, but, I mean, I think that's, should be met. I think they should just stop the gravel there.
Yeah,
And I
stop,
think even
stop.
mentioned, if you put gravel there, they're gonna use it, you know, who's gonna,
He's gonna stop them once they're in there. No, I think you're right, the gravel should not be shown into the,
yeah, because the only use for it is for that. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
storage area.
Well, my understanding from our conversation, and I'm not looking to argue with your opinion in any way, but my understanding was that we were not allowed to use that for storage. Now, obviously, that puts him on his honor to do what he says he's gonna do. But that paving inside of the setback line isn't an issue. It's storing things or parking inside of that. And that was, his concern is on the back, is on the west side, the 50-foot. He feels like he can use that to get his trucks in and out of. To pull that all the way back to 50 feet. He wasn't all that, he didn't like that idea.
so what he's saying, Steve, is that,
Look, you're paving, or not paving, but it's gravel, all the way that much further past. And I just think that would be
I don't
a
like
nice
that.
buffer. I mean, and on the sides, I mean, you're very close, like, I just think it's gonna be,
That's one thing I'd like to see is nothing in the right of way, or in the setbacks, period, and against the residential to the north, I'd like to see that even expanded if we have that authority to make that a little bit bigger.
I don't think, well, and we can, I think,
I kinda agree, it's a huge area.
Yep, so in fact,
1,000 square feet plus it's.
in the case where adjacent residential uses exist or are planned, the planning commission may increase the setback requirements. So you do have the discretion to say you're really close to residential uses, you might see that a bit bigger there.
what's that?
I like to, when we get to the call,
Yeah.
I'm anxious to hear what people have to say.
But now, what authority do we have to restrict his ability to pave within the existing setback? Pave, I say pave, but, because I think, as a practical person, there's no way to limit, storage within that area. And, you know, even if he's saying he's gonna use it for turning and,
Storage we can limit, but vehicular access drives, they can be located within required setbacks.
that's what I'm saying. I do understand that, but we can't practically, if we allow a contiguous gravel area for this whole area, that'll
Well, we
get
could-
used for storage.
It's gonna get used.
That's what I'm saying,
We could-
you know, and I know
It would fall on.
But we could require them to pave the entire parking lot, except for
pave, except
so,
for
I
that
mean,
area.
there could be some concession.
Trade-off.
Trade. Well, we don't know that we've gotten around the paving requirement yet, which we want to.
We'll get in there.
I mean, I don't think you're losing a lot of area, like, I just don't see it as like, I mean, look at the amount of expansion that they're getting,
Mhm.
is,
I agree.
I mean, and it just seems like that ditch is just like threaded through there.
Where's that?
Along this west property.
Just like the whole way, and I see that there's there's plantings.
What we're saying is, we'd like to see the gravel pulled back to the setback line. Especially up here, where you're planning on putting some screening along here, is that right? That's a berm, yeah.
Yes.
Some screening, but then even in here, you know, that's just, I don't think it's practical to say we're only gonna use that for turning and maneuvering.
I can understand that. I think I led with that.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah. It's kind of,
For consideration, yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of communities that have paving setback requirements that don't have anything to do with building setback requirements. I didn't find that in the,
You know,
so that's why we started here.
Sure.
I'm not, we're looking to satisfy the community and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
our business needs, his business needs.
All right, so we still haven't gotten around the paving issue. Like I say, I'm of the mind that we want to find a way to make him, to not require them to pave. I don't think that's very justified to require it, especially since pavement would just get, based on his use, it's impractical.
Well, maybe, I don't know how far that pavement is going, it's a little oddly shaped there at the driveway entrance. Maybe a little further in than that, is that just like a little angle there, that pavement, or, it's hard to tell, did you get into your drawing?
Yeah, it looks like it stops right there.
But is that just, like a little triangle of pavement?
That's aggregate.
Oh, that's aggregate.
Yeah.
I can see paving a little bit more into the site, just with, with material tracking out into the road.
I think he'd be okay with that.
So go another 50 feet or so into the site. You're proposing concrete.
My biggest concern, Dan, going back to that, is kind of a little bit of a trade-off for the, if we do the gravel instead of pavement, that we get at least the 50 feet for the setbacks and have that be a complete grassed area with landscaping in it, no gravel at all. So that way there's a...
In the ditch, that would include the ditch.
Yeah, and the ditch
the ditch and the landscaping.
Yeah, but just, so that way
Yeah,
there's
it's almost
nothing
like-
encroaching in that area.
It's almost like the open space. I feel like this entire site is just, gravel.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no buffer to anything. A little bit of arborvitae.
Lot coverage is,
Yeah, the lot coverage is
is a roof.
yeah.
Do you think that would be, it's gonna take some legwork to get around the pavement requirement. Do you think that your applicant would be willing
I can
to?
see his way to working with the.
Yeah, it's, what is this area in the back? I couldn't find the calculation. How much is this area back here that's gonna be hard surface? Or gravel or hard surface? I mean, it's
It's-
550 and 650, that's like 300,000 net,
6 acres.
300,000 square feet net, that'd be an expensive pavement.
I don't remember off the top of my head, to be honest. If I had it on my
think it's
computer,
Pardon?
if I had it on my computer, I'd click on it and tell them.
About 600 by 600.
If you go into the,
650 here.
if you go into the calculations up there on the upper right,
I can't read that, I wish we got a bigger
all the
print.
way up to the upper right, zoom in on that chart right at the top.
Right there?
That one right there, it'll give you an acreage.
3.86 acres.
8 acres.
8 acres.
Well, because he's got a couple drainage districts.
Oh.
So there's, probably those are districts for each inlet, I would imagine.
Right, there's.
So I
thought
got 8
the
acres.
question- yeah.
The west side here, 550 by 636 is 8 acres.
That's a lot bigger than 3.86.
Well,
Maybe
I think he's-
maybe the other one, the other chart to the
So we'll get that in there, Dan.
There it is, 10.10 acres.
Okay.
That looks better.
Yeah.
Of what?
Drainage area.
Gravel. That's
all the way to here.
That's to there, yeah.
But still, this area here is
Yeah, 8
Acres, which
acres
is
square, 10 acres total.
320,000 square feet. Plus.
It's crazy. All right. Well, I think the first most pressing thing is, Zach, can you, and maybe you want to too, coordinate and figure out the best, most painless way to resolve the paving issue?
Yep.
I think that's our critical path item at this point for site plan approval.
Okay. So we'll confer and then come back at another time.
Ross, can you go through the rest of the process for them?
Yeah, as far as it goes, once the planning commission feels that there's sufficient information that the plan is complete enough, then we can hold a public hearing, and then the planning commission can make a recommendation. So at this point, we could go through and try to communicate administratively, what options we may have for this paving dilemma. I know that's issue number one. That definitely needs to be resolved one way or another before the application is going to be ready for public hearing.
Well, at this point, our only option is to table your application until we have some more clarity on that.
Yeah, that's, I think, the biggest issue that the planning commission would have with being able to take action on the application. Without that, if it's not to be paved, that needs to be resolved. In addition, there were the few other minor comments. I think, was there additional information on landscaping or whatnot? I mean, right now, the planning commission can recommend additional information that you can provide or revisions to the information that's received. I mean, I think that.
Well, I've taken note of a few things that I think when we resubmit our plan,
Yeah, I mean, if the planning commission is completely happy right now with the responses that you provided based on the review, I mean, that's all great. If that's the case, then we just need to really figure out where to go with this paving issue that's identified.
Well, and then the offsets the setbacks that we noted.
Well, the planning commission can require that they are increased. If you wanted to discuss that further right now, that would be a good idea.
I think if you can show us that there will not be any pavement in that western portion, or any gravel within
Any setbacks.
in the setbacks, that would.
I think that would help with any,
help with
that was one of the items I was referring to as taking note of.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Adding some landscaping along.
Entrance detail, figure that out.
yeah, the entrance, it's hard to see on here, it looks like you paved at an angle, but I see that, but it surprised me that the county would, allow that small little bit of pavement and then go right into the road, but I just think it would be, best just to clean it up, so, they can sweep that driveway and get it clean, so you're not tracking material out into the road. Seems like the county would be concerned about that. It wouldn't fly with them, I can tell you that.
Agency reviews is a requirement as well. I believe you mentioned that the road commission will look into it further, but they are waiting for some of these changes to be made to the site plan as required by PC. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I've already talked to Mr. Deroser about, possibilities for extending the pavement into the site more, and he's willing to entertain that. We'll come back with a plan that addresses that.
Extending that driveway a little bit is a lot better than 10+ acres, right?
Absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense, I mean.
Yeah,
for a lot of
let's put the
reasons.
pavement where it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think we want to see an engineering review from our township engineer.
Yeah, definitely for all the drainage
for all the
calculations.
drainage and everything. Ross, you look pained on that.
Oh, no, I just need to verify exactly where that would come into play.
Okay.
I don't recall
Well,
offhand.
we would need to have a final determination or pavement, because that would have a huge impact.
Before final approval, absolutely, we
Yes.
need to have some sort of engineering review.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I need to double check the procedures to make sure that that's not something that is absolutely required of the planning commissioner, or if it's something that the township board would initiate prior to final approval. I know in some instances, they have done that in the past, but I just need to verify that procedurally.
So I wanted to quickly clarify the access drives. There are some cases where the zoning ordinance allows them in the front yard. It's listed as one of the few things that can be within the front yard setback, but you can't use front yard setback for off-street parking, except in certain districts, which is a bit complex. But so you can have access drives in the required front yard, and you can have them in, I'm in footnote M now. Access drives may be placed in the required front or side yards so as to provide access to rear yards or accessory or attached structures. Further, any walk, terrace, or other paving serving a like function shall be permitted in any required yard, provided the pavement is no higher than 9 inches above grade. So it's difficult to make the argument that extending into the required setbacks is necessary for access, because it's so wide. This reads to me, if you're in an area, like one of the bowling alley lots on the lake, that this says you can do your drive and walkway in there. But I will ruminate on that a bit more too.
Which, what do you mean? Go,
So there were,
explain that to me again.
yeah, there were
Sorry.
2 footnotes I looked at that mention access drives and required setbacks. One is
Yes.
footnote I on page 20-9, and the other was sub footnote of footnote M on page 2010.
Okay.
So it's like Inception, we're going footnotes into footnotes into footnotes.
And they take longer and longer.
And remember, if you die in a footnote, you die in real life too, so.
Okay. Well, is there anything else we want to see from this applicant before we see him again?
If they could they put, do you guys know the planned use for this area in the back? Like what you're gonna store and what area? It'd be good to see that in relation to property lines and, especially in the setback and what kind of vegetation. we
Yeah,
might
the
want.
landscaping, I mean, that's.
Yeah, that'd just be nice to see what the planned use is for it. Yeah, I know right now it's, getting ready to expand, but if you guys could provide it, that'd be great.
Where is material gonna be stored
Yeah.
versus trucks versus, equipment? All right. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
See you again. Okay, call to the public. Yes, sir. Why
So,
don't you come on up to the podium?
Lake Urban Development
Yes.
Plan. So I have some questions about that. Chuck Urban. First thing, landscape to the north, you're talking, I own property that butts right up to it on the north side. And there's a proposed road there, so if you can go to the map,
Sure, I'll open it up.
which is a very tight area. And I'll add that it's on a curve that has a very limited sight, which is a concern. Is anybody that's driven down that road at 7:30 in the morning?
Which road?
Running like,
Right,
yep. That goes to the high school.
okay, so you live on Running Lake Road.
I live
All right.
right on
Right
the
here.
corner, yep.
Circle driveway?
018?
Yes.
Yes. So it's a constant flow of traffic to the high school. at 7:30 in the morning and 2:30 in the afternoon. So the way the roads, you know, you've got 66 foot of frontage, 60 to 70, and it's right on a curve with very limited sight, so that's a safety concern. And as far as the landscaping, so now you're putting a public road or a private road, whatever, right up against my property. It's gonna hold, you've got on there, for phase one, 52 houses. So let's just say 2 houses per car as an average. So now you've got
2 cars.
100, yeah, 2 cars per house. Now you've got 108 cars coming in and out of there daily, roughly. So concern of safety for traffic, pedestrians, that's one of the issues that I want brought up and discussed.
Yep.
Another thing, you guys were talking about setbacks on water for like phase 2, but what about phase 1, where there is wetlands? Is there a setback requirement for wetlands?
Defer to the planning experts.
I
I was under the impression that
Because, so you can't develop wetland areas.
you can't build within them.
Although
To the,
You ought to build a sub.
the state allows you to do some amount of fill. So that's the challenge with doing the parallel plans, is that the
Yeah.
state will let you fill some certain amount.
Of the wetland?
Yes.
Yeah, they brought that up last.
Yeah.
Because I know some of that, I've got a map from Eagle on what's considered wetland, what's considered national wetland out there. There are some national wetland from what I can see. It was a rough map. So, it was my understanding, you can't develop national wetland.
You're referring to the National Wetlands Inventory map?
Yes.
The interactive viewer. That is good information for identifying where wetland areas are, but it's not a definitive answer on whether or not they are considered regulated wetlands by the state of Michigan. So they have different standards they have standards for regulated wetland areas, not necessarily unregulated. And they don't have a definitive interactive map that shows everything that's regulated. I don't know if they know everything that's regulated, but it's not our jurisdiction.
yeah,
So-
and really in terms of, you know, whether they can build in wetlands and what wetlands. The Eagle review, part of the agency reviews will be Michigan Department of Environment and Great Lakes and energy. And so,
It was easier when it was DEQ.
what's that?
It was easier when it was DEQ.
Or DNRE or whatever it is. So that would be part of the requirements, and if Eagle says they can't, then they can't, and that's not within our jurisdiction. here.
So what do we do, go back and revise the parallel plan?
They would have to, yeah.
So,
So then, we'd have to, you know, step back in the process.
so in the state of Michigan, for regulatory purposes, there are 2 types of wetlands at the state level. One is state-regulated wetlands, and the other is non-state regulated wetlands, which again, it's awkward to define something by what it's not, but that's what we've got. So, state-regulated wetlands, those that the state are concerned about, are wetlands that are more than 5 acres in area, wetlands that are connected to a water body of the state, and super special ones that have unique flora, fauna, or unique soil characteristics.
Stuff like that, yeah.
The ones that are non-state regulated, the state doesn't care if you fill it, if you bulldoze it, if you dredge it, whatever. For the state regulated, they do care, but they will allow some filling of it. And I believe there's even some amount of filling, it's been a while since I've done this, they may have changed, but some amount of filling you can do without even permits. But and my understanding is that the wetlands that are delineated on this plan have been identified by walking the site. So they actually went out there with the wetland identification person, and they dropped pink flags where they say, here's the edge of the wetland. And then a surveyor comes through with the transit and measures it.
Is that recent? With all the rain that we've had. Which leads me into my next thing, so the water runoff. So I live right there. And I'll tell you that it just doesn't absorb into the ground. my neighbor next door is building a house, which you guys know about. He had to go 13 feet down to hit sand. It's all clay. So water runoff will be an issue. And storm drainage and water runoff, okay, so you put in 54 houses, everybody fertilizes their yard, everybody puts pesticides down, I do it myself, not saying I'm not. Where's all that gonna go? Right into the lake, and how is that gonna affect the lake?
Well, and there again,
I know, that's
that'll
probably,
be captured
you know,
in
yeah.
agency review.
But as far as like the drainage, the storm drainage, is that something that,
Drain Commission of
because
Livingston
phase
County, I
one,
believe.
you said, I think, curbs?
Yeah, there's
curb and gutter.
curb and gutter and closed storm sewer.
Okay.
Is that the actual site plan?
Yeah, this is the latest
Just
site
concerned
plan.
about a lot of runoff.
Well, and there again, so Livingston County regulates
Okay.
that, and the Drain Commission will be, have an opportunity, or there's a requirement that they review it and approve
And
the stormwater management plan.
we do have commissioners who are well versed in this. The general trend in stormwater management, you don't take the pipe straight to the water body anymore.
Right, right.
Yeah.
There is a large preference for using natural features to do the filtering like they generally, so the wetlands, they love to suck out those things. However, there's still some sort of a pre-treatment, so the pipe doesn't go right to the wetlands, it kind of goes to a pre-treatment or forebay, so that when the first water comes through, it drops all the little particles there and it kind of catches it before it goes out. And that's something that's reviewed as part of the site plan.
Yep, and then during the approval process, we'll require a maintenance agreement on any pre-treatment devices that are installed and stuff like that.
I'd say my biggest concern though is the north edge.
The
It's where
traffic.
it already is in
Yeah.
the road being so close.
Mhm.
As far as the traffic, didn't we have some kind of traffic study done?
Wilson, have you done a traffic study yet?
Traffic study, but Livingston Road Commission went to that site and they said they can't be, there's gonna be enough entrance. It's because the site, they use technical words, when you look at either side, it is safe.
The site
It has-
distance.
Site
The
distance.
site distance is, I mean, it's on the far side of the curve. I mean, I looked at
Depending
it.
on which way you're coming. If you're coming from the north and you have to turn left into this area, the tree line that's to
The
the
tree line.
west, it would be on the west side of the road, that's what's blocking your view from the oncoming traffic.
You're talking about someone that's gonna turn left into the phase one
Correct.
entrance?
Correct, coming from like the high school. So if they're turning left into there, I know there's a lot of trees and stuff there. I know my driveway, it's very hard to see. I have to creep around the corner because cars come up on me very quickly coming from the south.
From the south?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're a little bit further into the curve.
A little bit, yeah.
And what I would expect is as the road commission sinks its teeth into it, that's when they would get into decel lanes and center turn lanes.
Yeah, the road
Does that mean we're gonna
commission.
get Runyon Lake repaved? Well, that's a whole different.
Well, I was gonna mention that the cobblestone effect helps calm traffic. Calms the traffic, angers the drivers.
Get the curve redone. I was at Livingston County about that one.
What did they do?
They repaved the curve there, right,
Oh, they did.
because it was
Just
so
last
bad. Because it was so
Just
bad in the
last week.
spring,
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
that it's, you didn't.
I mean, they have a sight distance issue driving down the road. Now, there's a sight distance issue just driving down the road.
Whether you're turning or not.
Yeah.
And right across from your street, there's that vegetation that blocks the sight distance.
All right, well, thank you for your comments.
All right, thank you.
Who's next? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Dean Hassan, I'm running late. I've got some concern with the runoff in the aspect of the extra water. We gotta maintain it, but eventually that goes into the creek, it goes in the north end of Runyon Lake. So who's gonna maintain our dam? Who's gonna maintain our water levels? I mean, all of that stuff's gonna be a huge effect on us. Not to mention the extra water coming down that creek. I live on the south end, and I own property down in the cove, and in the last 6 years, I spent $40,000 on dredging. I'm getting ready to do another dredging permit right now, I'm waiting for it from the DEQ, it's gonna cost me another $10,000, just to maintain the cove down in the south end, because of additional runoff that came from when they put the power lines through and et cetera. I've been fighting with Livingston County and everybody else to get me something about it, including the DEQ. The DEQ's answer is, they'll give me another permit to dredge. I'm concerned about the same thing happening at the north end of our lake.
Okay. That's a valid concern.
And if you want any more information, I've got 6 years of information, and I've got a private company down in Brighton, the STI, that's been helping with all of this.
Okay. Yeah, if you wanna reach out, you can find my email on the website. I'd be happy to.
I mean, it's just the extra water that comes from all this other stuff coming through a creek that's not designed for it.
Sure. Well, and again, the intent for any development is to outlet the same amount of water from the property that is being outlet before development. We do have to consider that when looking at all
And
these.
they have tightened those.
Yeah, the last 2 years.
They've tightened that up, so it's gotten even more restrictive. They're flowing it down to what they call the agricultural rate. So 5 years ago, you were allowed 1.2, and now it's like 0.1.
CFS or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've made the detention.
I wish they'd do it at the south end of the lake then, because they can care less about it.
No, he's talking about the regulations,
I'm
right?
not talking about regulating the amount of water that comes down.
Well, yeah, but if it's pre-existing, that's
Yeah.
nothing
That's
they
it,
can do
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Who is this?
Chair's got a little taller for those big guys. And that two Baxter is his dad. Anyways, Deroser,
Oh, sure.
he's not even here. You don't even know what he's gonna put out there. Richard brought it up at the end. We don't even know. Here you are gonna say, well, we're gonna bend this, bend that, twist this, twist that, for it to conform for what you want. We don't know what he wants. Or you guys have already given in. I mean, come on. I was at a lot of the master plan meetings, and the one big thing is outside storage. It was one of them. Number one things they were concerned about, okay? Signs was a big issue down, it was big all down 23 too. They want to develop it, they don't want it to be an eyesore. He's gonna have a lot of heavy equipment, there's a lot of dangerous fluids. They can see out those machines. Gravel's porous. Okay, so we gotta make sure, we gotta know what he's gonna put in there first. I'm not saying we can't do it, I'm just saying, if you live in that area, you're worried about your wells, worried about runoff, it's gonna be the same thing with urban, traffic. But, one of the biggest things, we want, it's just like the asphalt plant and everything else, we wanna try to keep this area pretty.
Beautiful. Sure.
Okay, and, we don't want an eyesore. Heavy equipment's heavy equipment. And we all know, I grew up on a farm. I've worked landscaping. I mean, I probably didn't run half the big stuff he's got over there, but I do know that stuff, some of those machines get old, they leak like hell. And, it just, we gotta contain it as much as we can. So if we gotta pave it, he's gotta pave it. And if you slip by the cracks with the first paving, the conditions should be, well, if you're gonna do the back, you're gonna do the whole thing. He's gonna, I'm sorry, but let's protect the, Marge Kennedy lives right there right behind that, over on Foster Road. I know her, she's an older woman, probably too old, I don't even know if she even knows what's going on, but I know her and went to school with her kids. But, there might be enough buffer there, but we gotta protect the well waters. But like I said, I think, look real hard at that paving, and, we really need to know what he's putting in there. I mean, he can haul a tanker in there. It's stored overnight, and if that thing busts, what's in it? We don't know. We don't know what he's gonna bring in there. What are you gonna limit to bring in there? This is all stuff we need to know. I'm not saying we don't wanna do it, just that we gotta protect some of the residents around there and our well water, so, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, actually, I'm the house north of that, right there, the
Deroser?
23, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's absolutely a big concern, what are they storing out there, what chemicals are leaking out? I mean, even if they have diesel fuel leak for their tanks or gasoline, what's it gonna do to the groundwater?
Sure.
Another concern is the noise. I mean, we hear their machinery at 5 in the morning, so during the week, and sometimes early as 7 on the weekends, so, I mean, if they
That's
would
it.
build a huge berm out there, it would probably help some. But I mean, didn't you say there's something, 7 a.m.'s,
Yes.
operating time?
So I was gonna say,
If you're hearing it outside of,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that, I mean, if it's outside of our, what's permitted, you might have an issue. What's that? Yeah.
We need to know that.
Yeah, I mean, where they cleared, I mean, before the leaves came back in the tree, we could just look out, you know, front door and see it basically, so.
Okay.
And increasing noise is definitely not a good thing. The retaining pond they're proposing right there too, is that gonna flood my backyard, my hayfield, you know? That's another.
Sure, well,
issue right there.
the point of the pond would be that it would, so it wouldn't do that, so.
Yes,
So
I
any,
mean, but if we keep getting rain like we've been getting, just pounding us with rain constantly.
It shows an outlet on the very corner of that retention pond.
the spillway.
Yeah, so is that gonna flood my backyard and my
Well,
fields?
that's the way that the normal flow goes anyways. So
Right.
again, it's back to the agricultural rate. It's the rate that the DEQ sets, or whatever they're called nowadays, sets up for the flow.
Yeah. There's not a lot of, I'm Wisconsin.
No, these ponds are, I'm in real estate, these ponds have gotten huge in the last, I mean, when they changed the last rule, it literally doubled the size of these. They oftentimes, even with all this rain, you won't even get an outflow. They're that big. You could put a battleship in some.
Right now, there's no runoff from that property because it was wooded.
Yeah.
We really didn't get any runoff from that property. Now there's gonna be a lot of runoff from that property.
Well, again, the pond captures, you know, the intent, it's gotta be designed to capture, what, a 100-year storm, which is
Back to back.
back-to-back 100-year storms,
And
which
if you
is,
look at the elevations of that pond,
you know,
it
they,
don't hold much.
But that is one of the reasons that we were pushing them to increase the side yard setbacks, and I'm thinking some additional berming makes sense.
yeah, especially along your property.
Yeah, it's along the residential.
Would the berm be extending over here too, in front of the?
I think that
He
makes sense.
he is showing it coming up to an elevation of 974 and then going back down to meet the existing grade. I guess I can't say whether or not
That's not what you're.
that's not a berm, no, that's just the edge of the pond.
This is the first time we've seen this tonight,
Mhm.
so we're just going through it.
Yeah,
And
trying to stay on it.
figuring it out.
Trying to get your feedback.
But I think your comments are very good.
Yeah.
Would you like to state your name for the record?
Oh, Ben Dexter?
Thank you, Mr. Dexter. All right, who's next? Well, our next workshop meeting. Oh, Jeanette, you have a comment? Yeah.
So I just want to, again, I'm very pleased with the way the conversation and everything is going. I really do appreciate it. And Dan, thank you for setting the tone. You're the chairman. And I have really enjoyed how you've incorporated the group, the public that comes, and you're back and forth with questions. That's really good. In fact, all of you have been really great, so thank you. I am concerned about the master plan. We've been on pins and needles since February when you guys said that this was, or, you know, you were some of the ones that have said that this is something that we need to get involved with, but we haven't heard anything yet. So do you know when?
We haven't discussed any master planning timelines. It's got to be done in 2022, correct?
Yep, that is the deadline. The intent behind trying to get the word out is to make sure that everyone is prepared. There is still adequate time to be able to complete the process. I mean, right now, from what I've heard, as far as the board and the officers, what they would like to do is maximize public involvement as much as possible. I believe right now they're still in the process of determining the best strategy. In the past, it was primarily visioning sessions and then 1 or 2 public hearings, and that's it.
Okay, we're hoping for much more.
Yes, that is the plan at this time. As far as set dates, there's nothing that I'm aware of at this time.
And no plan to set the dates as far as you know?
There likely is. That's gonna be a discussion that's had with the township board and.
That would be the board
officers.
that we would ask?
And
Yeah, we'll have discussions between us and the board and you know, us at our workshop meetings. I mean, since February, we've had a pretty full agendas at each meeting, so we haven't had much room for master plan discussion, so hopefully we can start to work some of these applications out and get them cleared so we can focus on business, such as the master plan.
And a lot of communities have pushed master planning processes back because you want to get people together and do input, and when they're public health orders, it's difficult to do that well.
Yeah, let's do it before there's public health orders again, this is my thing. You know, we're semi-open right now, now's the time when we should get together and start meeting, because who knows what's gonna happen when fall comes along,
Sure.
so.
All right.
You have people that wanna do it, so we're waiting anxiously, thank you.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Thanks.
All right, one last call to the public, and then we are going to adjourn. Going once, going twice. Next Wednesday.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
All right.
We'll see you there. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking it out for 2.5 hours. I was even making text about it. I was self-taxed.
Thanks again.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I understand. I was having some technical issues all day. I was up until last minute trying to get this package. Good part of this, I wanted to print this particular site plan on 11/17.
There's an army we're kind of.
So the ponds are supposed to be captured. If you have any kind of spill, you're supposed to replace it. I mean, if you don't.
Anything more than 50 gallons, you have to report.
I will say that, you can't see it.
No.
I don't see it.
I don't live next door.
That's a lot of gravel.
Well, that's what I'm saying, he's already got it.
His business is private, he wants to.